anti-trans, anti-Jew, anti-black. These are all labels that a popular Minecraft streamer named Tubbo ascribed to users of the streaming platform Kick. Why? Well, another popular Minecraft streamer named Sapnap recently made a move over to the site. As a Minecraft streamer, it goes without saying that Sapnap is going to have a younger audience who Tubbo thought shouldn't be on the site. He seemed to have been of the approach that Sapnap was responsible for these younger audience members and therefore should have been wiser in decision making his points with some gusto.
I feel like this platform is not a safe place to be openly trans, not a safe place to be openly Jewish, not a safe place to be black, for example. It's insane. With such a large and powerful voice, it's best that you're more responsible with where you want to bring your community, and you have a responsibility to protect them as well.
Of course, when two big streamers disagree on any topic, other creators will be there covering the news and giving their thoughts on it, but at least in this instance, it seems as though public opinion was relatively divided. People saw it from different perspectives. On Team Tubbo, you'd have people who share his point of view. As we'll absolutely get into later, Kick is much less moderated than other areas of the internet. It seems almost like a site from 10 to 15 years ago rather than one today. In the modern landscape of the internet, sites often find themselves opting to moderate a lot of what goes on there because advertisers seem to prefer non-controversial content. Kick, however, have seen a gap in the market, as there are a lot of people who got fed up with its predecessor, Twitch, being too harsh on enforcing its rules, and therefore one of Kick's selling points is that it's a bit edgier. It allows in an audience that pulls less punches, and of course a byproduct of that is that you're going to get some people who go on there just to post a bunch of slurs, to say some horrible things, and face no consequences in doing so. The argument is, of course, by Sapnap moving over to Kick, he's upped the chances of his audience seeing this kind of stuff. There undoubtedly will be some people from Sapnap's audience who are young and would follow him to the ends of the earth, Kick included in there, and you have to ask, is this fair to them? Is it fair to potentially expose them to slurs and other hateful language? Well, maybe, and that sounds horrible to say, but hear me out, we're going to listen to both sides of this. A former Twitch streamer turned YouTube streamer called Ludwig spoke about the debate on his channel Mogul Mail, where he too questioned the move.
Kick.com right now, I think is a little too unmoderated and a little too associated with just hate speech outright. And so a creator like Sapnap going over will be an interesting test. We will see. All right, is he going to be hate rated by the people who are around him? Will the people who go to Sapnap's stream feel comfortable being on that stream?
Clearly Ludwig was apprehensive about the move, but these are the questions that were always going to be asked. This acquisition from Kick was really the first of its kind. It's the first time that a Minecraft streamer as large as Sapnap has gotten up, strolled across no man's land, and gone into the enemy trench. And time will only tell how it plays out. But there were some people who made the argument that Tubbo's response was stupid. Achito, a commentary creator, made the point that stuff like gender, sexuality, and religion is unlikely to come up during a livestream chat. He argued that Sapnap's audience very likely will not be targeted because they're trans or black or Jewish, because who's out there on a live stream race revealing in the chat?
But my first question is, how would you even be openly gay on Kick.com? Okay, if you're just in Sapnap's chat, are you literally typing out in chat, hey guys, this is me, I'm gay, I like penis. Like, why would you do that? You know what I mean?
Moreover, he made the point that it's not Sapnap's responsibility to look after his audience, because at the end of the day, it's the responsibility of the parents to make sure that their children are on age-appropriate sites.
You don't have to protect your fans. What is this parasocial mentality, dog? What is this? These people are not your parents. These people are influencers. They play Minecraft, okay? Your parents should be the ones looking after you, like seeing what websites you're going on.
Turkey Tom, on his second channel Tom Dark, argued that the entire response was overblown. He made the claim that Kick really isn't the monster that most people think it is, and that because Sapnap doesn't have a bigoted audience, it's not like he's going to adopt one overnight because he went over to a new platform.
Sapnap is someone who's a mainstream creator. He's not racist, he's not edgy in any way, he doesn't like any of that stuff, and yet here he is going to Kick because they offered him some money. If anything, him going there will make that platform less racist, less bigoted, and less edgy.
Tom's audience seemed to agree with him, with one person comparing Minecraft Twitter's reaction to the entire incident to Sapnap violating the Geneva Convention. So you have to ask, for Sapnap, why risk it? Does he want to be a good ambassador for Kick like he says? Does he want to be the one to bring positive change to the platform? Or does he want a bit of change himself? Let's not kid ourselves here. I have to assume that this decision was mostly financial, as over the past couple of months, Kick has been scooping up unhappy streamers, paying them multi-million-dollar contracts to come over and stream. I don't know the guy, but based upon the fact that people often question if he actually cares for the audience that he's cultivated or for being a positive role model, it could definitely be that he saw the check, closed his eyes, and signed on the dotted line. If I'm being frank here, to be a Minecraft creator is to be an entertainer to an audience mostly comprised of children and teenagers. Of course, there are older audience members who can watch and enjoy this content too, but a large portion of Sapnap's audience is a younger demographic. Maybe this move was simply a way of him distancing himself from them now that he's a bit bigger and is no longer as dependent on them anymore. His announcement video might be seen as a clue, as he's watching Cocomelon before destroying his name. Maybe this is me going all game theory on him, but this could be him trying to tell us that he's done with that kind of stuff. As I've already mentioned, Kick has been paying exorbitant amounts of money recently, and over the past year has consistently been poaching talent away from Twitch. But how did we get to where we are now? Well, that's exactly what we're about to get into in a moment, because in this video, we're taking a look at some of the largest controversies that Kick has seen in its short life. From sex scandals to problematic personalities, it seems like the site is making headlines every day. To give you some background, Kick was founded in late 2022 as a competitor to Twitch, perhaps the largest live streaming site on the web. For years now, creators have been complaining about the service. As I covered in my Twitch episode in my Book of the Ban series, they terminate a lot of accounts, and they tend to be quite inconsistent in who they go for and why, and this has led to a lot of resentment. Additionally, in autumn 2022, gambling was culled from the site in a move spearheaded by one of the largest streamers, Pokimane. Unlicensed gambling sites, many of which were extremely popular, were banned. We're talking the likes such as Roobet.com, Duelbits.com, and of course, Stake.com. These sites apparently didn't provide enough customer protection, and Twitch deemed them to be potentially harmful. Keep in mind that contrary to popular belief, this didn't entirely kill off gambling on Twitch. Some forms of gambling were still allowed, but in less than a year since the banning of these unlicensed sites, Twitch has reported that viewership of gambling content is down by 75%. This new change in policy angered a lot of viewers and streamers alike. Knowing what we know now, this could have been a grave mistake for the site. Though perhaps Kick's greatest advantage was the gargantuan blunder that Twitch made when they announced they were changing their 70-30 revenue split for premium streamers. Essentially, streamers that were large enough, ones that brought viewers over to the site, were able to get a deal from Twitch in which they kept 70% of the revenue earned through subscriptions, but Twitch announced that it was going to change this so that all of their deals with streamers went down to a 50-50 split. Every large streamer had to ask themselves, why should I stay here on Twitch if my revenue's being cut from 70-30 to 50-50? Keep this in mind too, if you're unaware, Twitch is owned by Amazon. You know, one of the most profitable companies in the world. It's not like it's a fledgling little startup. I have to assume that this was purely a move for greed, and it cost Twitch dearly. They had already been losing talent to YouTube over the past year or two, with the likes of Valkyrae, Sykkuno and Ludwig signing exclusive deals to come over. But in late 2022, things would go from bad to worse when Bijan Tirani and Ed Craven, the founders of Stake.com, as well as streamer Trainwrecks TV, better known as Train, would found Kick. Their company would offer creators a 95-5 split for subscriptions, so 95% of revenue earned would go to the creator. By March of this year, big names such as Adin Ross and chess grandmaster Hikaru Nakamura would join the site. Then in June, XQC was given a contract worth $70 million to stream on Kick for 2 years. Then 2 days later, the site signed Amaranth for an undisclosed amount, but based off XQC's contract, we could assume that this deal was worth potentially tens of millions. Of course, other creators who had been permanently banned by Twitch made the move over too, and so here we are today. Twitch is losing creators fast. YouTube and Kick are poaching them all one by one, and not everyone is too happy about it. Back in July this year during a live stream, Pokimane came out with some choice words against Kick. She was asked by a viewer if she would change her colours from purple to green and sign with Kik if offered $10 million, and she argued against it. She said that she's already got a lot of money, so it really wouldn't make sense to compromise her morals to sign on the dotted line.
Nope. No, and it's not because I got like $10 million, it's just because I'm good as I am. Why would I compromise my morals and ethics for more money when I have money? Something about that is so cringe to me personally. Like, I understand, you know, if you need to make money. Can someone put this into words better than I can? It's almost embarrassing.
Now, Pokimane has some trouble articulating her point here. It's quite difficult to say that you're an insanely rich multi-millionaire without sounding boastful, but that's essentially what she was saying. In her mind, Kik is morally grey. It's perhaps just a bit unethical. Though she doesn't expressly say it, it's possible that she agrees with a lot of what Tubbo had to say, mainly that being that Kik isn't moderated enough and that it fosters an offensive or even problematic user base. But as you might expect, there were many people who criticised Pokimane because of her viewpoints. As we mentioned earlier, there are creators out there who have argued that Kik's user base really isn't as bad as many people would have you believe. XQC said that he genuinely didn't understand the morals and ethics argument, and even Kik itself responded to the drama with a TikTok that poked fun at the streamer.
What
are you doing?
Nothing. Me? Just hanging around.
This clip is clearly implying that it's really not her business where a streamer decides to go. Something else has to be said of Pokimane's position though, and it's a point I'm not sure has been explored very much or expanded upon, but you could definitely make the argument that Pokimane inadvertently led to the rise of Kik, even if it was just in part. As I mentioned earlier, Pokimane was one of the largest critics of gambling content on Twitch, and as I discussed in my Scammers Iceberg last December, gambling content had become incredibly popular on Twitch prior to its erasure. Towards the end of its life, gambling was in the top 10 categories on the platform, increasing in popularity by 66% compared to the year prior, and then Slicker had to go and scam everyone, and well, you know, it wasn't too long until the category was catapulted into non-existence. Pokimane was one of the largest advocates for Twitch to do something about the category, and within days, gambling restrictions were put in place. Was Pokimane wrong for doing this? We'll get into that in a moment, but one of her main arguments was that gambling was supposedly being promoted to young audiences. Was this true? Again, we'll get into that in a moment, but for now, let me tell you that almost 75% of Twitch's audience is apparently under 35 years old. But since no report I found was able to give a reliable estimation on their under 18 audience, it's kind of tough to gauge just how many under 18s watch. Still though, you have to assume that it's a fair percentage. So the question has to be asked, does Pokimane have a leg to stand on? Is access to gambling content for young people really that unethical? Well, to find out, I guess we're going to have to take a look at it. Obviously, this portion of the video is going to be difficult to do because there are just so many different forms of gambling and even more types of gamblers. So I'm going to try and focus on just the impact of these sorts of streams and under 18's responses to gambling in general. So on the one hand, you have the argument that this was a gateway to gambling for the youth. Twitch doesn't have age verifications put in place. If you want to watch a gambling stream, all you have to do is click on a button saying that you're okay with it. This means that young people can hypothetically easily access this sort of content, and studies have shown that they don't exactly fully understand it. The UK Gambling Commission found that around 3 in 10 of 11 to 16-year-olds were actively involved in gambling in the past 12 months. And these numbers can be broken down even further, as this study found that 27.3% of children this age are non-problem gamblers, 2.4% are at risk, and roughly 1% of 11 to 16-year-olds are classed as problem gamblers. Compare this to the adult population, where according to the UK government, 3.8% of gamblers are at risk and 0.5% have a problem, and you can see that it's not that far off. Now, you might be thinking that 0.5% is fairly low, and in some instances, of course, it is, but when you look at the United Kingdom's population of 67 million, 0.5% of that is more than 300,000. If we're relating these numbers back to live streams, the same study found that 36% of its participants, so more than 1 in 3, were exposed to gambling content via live streaming. This number can be broken down into 44% of the boys asked and 28% of the girls. How many of those do you think were through Twitch? Of these people who said that they saw gambling content via live streams, 47% said that they were exposed to gambling at least once a week. In fact, live streams were the most common place for these children to be exposed to gambling advertisements on a regular basis, beating out the likes of other social media and television ads. So it seems as though Pokimane and the other anti-gamblers were in a way correct. Under 18s, just like adults, do consume gambling content, and they do form unhealthy relationships with gambling, and therefore you could definitely make the argument that gambling on Twitch should be restricted. At the same time though, of course there were arguments against this. Just as we said before, many people would say that it should be the parents' responsibility to make sure that their children consume appropriate content, not streaming sites. And if we're looking at Kick specifically, something that's come up a lot in this video is that it's not appropriate for younger audiences. In this case, good. If under 18s actively seek out gambling content online, there's no stopping them. But because the general consensus is that Kick.com is a bit edgier and not as safe for young audiences, if a 15-year-old or a 16-year-old is on Kick watching someone play slots, you might make the argument that those are their choices, and if they then go and gamble, those are their consequences. If you look at Kick's gambling live streams, they all say 18+. As we know, there's an audience for it, so if Twitch isn't going to take it, Kick will. So what do you guys think? Let me know respectfully down in the comments below as I move on to yet another area of Kick that people have had a problem with, that being the violations of their sex and nudity policy. So we've touched on hate speech and gambling content so far in this video, and I wanted to discuss yet another aspect of Kick content, one that I don't think has been spoken about so much, that being the overt sexual content that is on the site already. Now, sexual content and live streaming go together like apple and pie. The past few years have seen e-girls especially make some serious bank by engaging in sexually suggestive content over Twitch. I've discussed this topic at length in both my video on e-girls and banned Twitch users, but essentially, Twitch has been quite inconsistent in what they do and don't allow on the site. As I discussed in these videos, you've had creators like Amaranth who did similar things to IndieFox, but IndieFox's Twitch account was terminated for 2 years, whereas Amaranth was allowed to carry on. And as I mentioned earlier in this video, Amaranth, one of the largest Twitch streamers, has now signed on with Kick. And purely based on the rules that were announced on Kick's Discord, it seems as though Kick on paper have similar policies when it comes to sex and nudity to Twitch. So when a Kick streamer called Suspendus immediately had sex whilst live back in December 2022, it caused a bit of a stir. According to a Sportskeeda article, Suspendus, an IRL streamer, appeared to be fully naked while live. And according to online gaming reporter Jake Lucky, he apparently had engaged in sexual intercourse with a hooker. Worse yet, if this was in fact true, he was able to evade any and all consequences. Suspendus is still on Kick to this very day, despite being embroiled in yet another sex scandal only a few months later. In early April 2023, he allegedly was having sex whilst there was a minor in close proximity. I can't verify for certainty if this is true or not. My source for this story is Elaine Thomas, who wrote about it in an article for Dexerto. Her source links a Reddit page in which people went off on Suspendus, but as I said before, and please pardon the pun, he's still around and kicking. Of course, this isn't even where Kick's sex scandals stopped either. If we take things back to February this year, news stories started dropping about another Kick streamer, this one called Heel Mike. If you look him up, you'll see all sorts of articles written about him. Heel Mike is quite the controversial figure, but back in late February this year, it was announced that Heel Mike was actually banned from Kick for streaming himself receiving a head. That's right, he slopped his way to the top, generating 25,000 viewers who all tuned in to see his knob get gobbled. But this would not go down well, as obviously this is against Kick's rules. His punishment? a 1-day suspension. He tweeted out his support for Kick, saying that it's the GOAT or the greatest of all time because it tells creators where they went wrong. I guess he must have missed the memo about receiving head on stream, but nonetheless, that was the last sex scandal that Kick ever had. For about 24 hours, because it was during this time that another Kick streamer, Adin Ross, was still dealing with the fallout of his own controversy. Adin Ross might have called hot tub streams poison in the past, in a rant that he's since apologised for, but this hasn't stopped him from showing straight up nudity on his stream on more than one occasion. The first instance was back in February. As I said, it was at the same time that Heel Mike had his scandal, and the dude literally whipped up the hub whilst his chat went wild. In this instance, Ross was able to avoid getting a ban, going on later to brag about it. A few months later, in August 2023, he was streaming himself on a website called monkey.app, which operates in a similar fashion to Omegle, and you can start to see where this is going. He violated Kick's nudity policy again in this stream, but as was the same case in February, he was once again able to avoid any repercussions. Clearly, Kick is playing favourites here, which is what annoyed a lot of people about Twitch. It's easy to understand why some fans might get annoyed if their favourite streamer was banned for something that Adin Ross was given a pass for. And for that reason, time will only tell if history once again repeats itself. But of course, Adin Ross has done a lot more than just show nudity on his streams to generate controversy. He's one of the figureheads of Kick, but also one of its most contentious streamers. It's time to talk about Ross himself and why his mere existence is a source of controversy for the site. You probably know Mr. Ross by now, but just in case you don't, the 22-year-old is currently one of the most controversial figures on the internet. Why? Well, for starters, many people have called him both homophobic and transphobic. In terms of his homophobic controversies, there have been instances of Ross allegedly using homophobic slurs.
Yeah, I don't know. He did you again? He got you again?
Yes, bro. Like, this kid's a
No!
He then apparently tried to gaslight people into thinking that he said Alan, but very few people were buying it. In response, Ross was banned from Twitch, and so he took to Kick, allegedly not knowing why he was banned. As for his attacks on the trans community, Ross has made it clear that he doesn't seem to believe in any other gender identity other than male and female. He seems to believe that people that use they/them pronouns are just looking for attention, and in what's been described as a transphobic rant from March of this year, he even went as far as to say that his pronouns were kill/them.
So all you guys that get to pick your pronouns, my pronouns is kill/them, okay? Fuck all y'all, bro. Y'all are making the world a shitty place, bro. I'm gonna call you either a guy or a girl.
Of course, this led a lot of people who didn't take too kindly to the LGBT community to flock over to Ross, who apparently had his Kick chat live on Twitch for roughly 20 minutes, and these people spewed very insensitive messages. As I've mentioned before, Kick has very little moderation compared to Twitch, and so the things that people were saying on Kick were unhinged to say the least. Very unhinged, in fact. So unhinged that, according to Dixerto, this was potentially the reason that he got permanently banned from Twitch in February. A Twitch spokesperson told Dixerto that Adin Ross was banned after showing unmoderated, hateful conduct in chat. Per our community guidelines, unmoderated, hateful conduct in chat, such as racist and anti-Semitic messages, is not allowed on Twitch. Ross had made the move to Kick just days before, but in the fallout of these events, he now had to go full-time. If you take a look at his former Twitch account today, you'll see that it's still gone, likely never to come back. So Ross officially moves over to Kick, and ever since he's been one of the stars of the site. But with a figure as controversial as Adin Ross, you have to wonder, is this a good thing for the service? Let's be honest, Ross is not exactly squeaky clean. Streamers such as Pokimane and Tubbo probably have someone like Ross in mind when they speak to their audience about the morals and the ethics of Kick. Ross's audience have been known to spam some hateful, racist and bigoted messages in the chat. They've been known to trick the dude into seeing his sister naked on more than one occasion. You have to ask yourself, is this the kind of guy that you want representing your brand? Kick's CEO Eddie Craven admitted that Ross had been an asset in areas. After all, he had helped the platform grow in its infancy, but he'd be lying if he said that Ross wasn't a brand risk. Ross was one of the first big streamers across to kick. He set the standard. But will him being such an important icon for the site turn out to be more of a poison chalice? I guess we'll have to wait and find out. But having said that, you don't need to wait to watch another one of my videos. If you're interested in me talking about live streaming communities, why not check out my video on the darkest depths of VTubers? It's a great video if I do say so myself. If you enjoyed this, I'm sure you'll love it. Speaking of which, if you enjoyed this, make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. I would truly appreciate it. Aside from that, I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you later.